welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you our Q3 review for homeschool. And so if you enjoy this type of content and other homeschool and lifestyle content, please remember to subscribe and let's get into it. All right, so it is really weird to be already filming Q3. Like that we finished Q3. I'm like, when did that even happen? And this might be a little bit earlier than some people's Q3 finishes, just because we usually finish our normal like homeschool year the beginning of May, because we either end up going on a family trip, or this year me and my husband are going on a trip together, which hasn't happened in years. And so I'm very excited about that. And so my husband's a professor, so when he gets done with school the end of April, we like to take trips in May before everybody else gets out of school. And so then we will usually do a few school things during the summer. We'll have a month or two off completely, and then we'll gradually work our way back into like full-blown school starting again after Labor Day. And so it might seem like a huge break. We're still doing school during the summer. Sometimes, you know, we are doing it, not sometimes, but it's not like full-blown like everything that we normally do. And so this Q3 is probably coming earlier than you might expect, or even that you're doing because of that, because we're only have about 8 more weeks left in our normal homeschool year, and then we will be out for summer break. And so that's why it's coming now. So I'm just gonna go through our things a little bit in order, I guess, of how we usually do them in the school day, and explain any differences, anything that's been the same, stuff we tried, things like that. So let's get into it. The first thing I wanted to mention is math. And so my son, my oldest son, who's in 7th grade, just started Denison math over this quarter, because last quarter review, I believe, is when I asked what math you guys would suggest for someone we just finished the Good and the Beautiful Math 7. And I know they just came out with their Math 8, but that was after we had already started this. And I think it would be too easy for him. It's pre-algebra, and he is already just cruising through this. This book is humongous, by the way. Well, it's gonna whack me in the face and knock me out. And so far, it's so good. Like, he's been cruising through some of the lessons. He went through several at the beginning pretty quickly. They're fairly easy, sort of review type stuff. And so now he started watching the video lessons more because I was like, you need to watch them just to make sure you're not missing anything. And he grades his own schoolwork, which is so nice, because I was grading his math, and not that it added that much more, but it's nice now that I don't have to worry about it. And so he's been grading his own things. My husband knows a little bit more about what's going on with him in math, just because he usually is doing his math when, like, he likes to get going first thing in the morning, and I'm usually working out. And so I miss the part where he's doing his math because of that. And so my husband tries to make sure everything is going okay, and that he's getting the things correct, you know, that he's working through everything in the way that he's supposed to. And so the idea of this math is that he does correct his own work, and he can see what he's done wrong. And there is a solutions manual too, and solutions videos. So if he doesn't understand right away what he got wrong, or needs to see it like worked through, there's those options. Or me and my husband know math well enough that we could probably show him as well. But so far it's been going really well. I already bought the geometry one just because we had a little bit extra charter school funds and because he's probably gonna need it by the end of summer. He'll probably need the geometry one just because of how quickly, even though this thing is massive, he's been working through it fairly quickly. So that was a change with math, and so far, so good. So thank you so much for the recommendation. It was resounding Denison math. All the comments, that's almost what all of them were. So I was very grateful for that. And I was grateful too that it's hands-on. I know there's lots of good math programs out there, and a lot of them are more on the computer, which I know that's just the way of how things are going. But I also think there's just so many important things that can be learned from writing stuff down and working through math on paper, and that it's just very helpful. So I loved too that it was like a paper copy of this, and it wasn't just all doing stuff on a computer, answering questions on a computer, that it is him working in this book and having to fill things out and figure it out, correct everything himself, and just kind of see where he's going wrong. So thank you for that. And then also the only other thing for math that's changing pretty soon, which I probably should just mention in the next quarter, but I'll mention it here, is that my daughter that's in 6th grade is about done with Math 6 from The Good and the Beautiful. So next week, well, we're taking spring break next week because my husband has spring break off from the university, different than all the like public school elementary kids and stuff. And so not next week, but she will finish it the next week because she is really close to being done. And so she'll be starting Math 7 soon. So we've had some different change ups with math recently because everyone's just ready for the next level. So that's kind of where we were with quarter 3 with math, and everything is still going really well. I feel like everyone's in a good spot for math. We have had very minimal tears and lots of learning, which I always count that as a big win. All right, I don't really have anything like updates or anything about language arts. I feel like all of it's going pretty well. Still just working through all the Good and the Beautiful's language arts. The only thing I was wondering about suggestions, since you guys are so good at giving me feedback, I'm trying to figure out handwriting. So we've been doing handwriting from The Good and the Beautiful. So it's not the problem of necessarily having a curriculum. I'm just wondering what you do for your kids for handwriting, especially as they get older, to encourage better handwriting. You know, I don't want to hound it and say it has to be perfect or, you know, like just stay within the little lines and everything like that. I don't want it to be something that they come to hate. But I also am like, how, especially as kids get older, do you encourage them to write a little bit better and clearer so that other people can read it? And most of it, like, I can read a lot of their writing, but I feel like some of the kids in our neighborhood, again, I don't like to compare it to like public school and stuff like that, but there's a few of them that have really, really good handwriting. And I don't want to like shove it into my kids' heads, but I also want them to understand just the importance of making sure you can read what you're writing and that whoever's correcting it can read what you're writing. And so if you had suggestions for that or anything that you have done or implemented that maybe is helpful for handwriting, or maybe you have them go back and write it clearer, like, yes, this is good, but can you go back now and write it clearer? You know, so it's a little bit easier to understand, the spacing's better, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's my little like spill. It's something I've just been thinking about recently, and it's come up a few times between me and my husband and stuff, and I'm just, if you have suggestions for how to help kids just become better at handwriting, you know, like I said, we already have curriculum we're using. It's more of when they just write stuff normally or are doing their language arts assignment, I feel like they get a little bit sloppy. When they do their handwriting in their Good and the Beautiful handwriting books, they do a better job. But when they're just doing their normal schoolwork, they're not doing as good of a job. So suggestions for that to encourage just better handwriting all the way around instead of just when they're doing their handwriting in their workbooks. So there you go. That was kind of long. There you go. All right, so for science, we finished the Good and the Beautiful chemistry unit. We really loved this unit. It was a lot of fun. There's a lot of experiments, which is sometimes a little daunting, but also fun. Like, my kids really loved it, and it changed up things too. I like how we have some science units that aren't maybe as hands-on or not hands-on in as much experiment type ways. They might have other activities you can do, but it might not be the same. And so it was different than a lot of the other units that we have done because there just were a lot more experiments. And I liked also most of these experiments only require things you have already on hand for the most part. You know, there's a lot of like food coloring or vinegar or baking soda or things like that. And you can substitute other things easily. Like if you don't have a graduated cylinder or a beaker or anything like that, it gives suggestions for other things that you could use. And so we used a kitchen scale quite a bit. You know, there was just different things that it was like, I didn't really have to get anything extra. Most of this stuff I already just had on hand. So I appreciated that it wasn't like crazy experiments where it was gonna be really hard for me to get what we needed. It was just simple things, but still really fun. Like, my kids really loved it. And some of the experiments, at least maybe one, maybe two, I feel like in the recent day in the life videos, I've shown some of them just because they were so fun. So we went through this. It's it's about the same length, I feel like, as the other ones. I feel like it's 14 lessons, but each lesson itself, some days were a little bit longer. So we do science Monday and Wednesday, and so it ended up, some of those days I had to cut a little bit of our other work shorter, or like our read aloud. It's like either we wouldn't have time to read it, or we could only read a little bit, because the chemistry with the experiments and explaining everything and getting everything ready, it just took longer to do science. So I just had to kind of adjust and plan for that, because it's different than some of the other science units we've done. And also this one is for 5th to 8th grade. And so my second grader did it with us, and so did, well, he's in 5th grade, I think, my 5th grader. I'm like, I don't know. No, he's in 4th grade. Also did it with us. And I know I can't keep track of their grades. Like I said, their math and their language arts, a lot of them are on different levels than their grade, so it gets confusing in my head. So anyway, they did it with us, and obviously it was easier for my 4th grader than it was for my 2nd grader. She still followed along. Sometimes in her workbook here, this isn't hers, but she would just sit and copy like what her siblings were doing, or they'd explain stuff to her. You know, these types of things she could do with us. This was like for the scientific method, so she could cut out the things and participate. There was a fair bit of writing, which was a little bit harder for her, but some of these things too, she could cut and paste them even if she wasn't able to completely read them. So she participated as much as she could, and then we helped her a little bit with what we were talking about, or she'd just sit and kind of observe what was going on. So, sorry, we're still sick over here, and my throat is so scratchy. It's like I'm over the tired, exhausted part of being sick, but I just have a very, very scratchy throat right now. So I'm trying to like talk and not cough my lungs out. So that was really fun. We finished chemistry, and then we started mammals. We just did the 4th lesson. We're doing the 4th lesson tomorrow. Okay, so I have this all set out for tomorrow. So we're doing the 4th lesson tomorrow, and then we'll be on spring break, and we'll come back and keep going with it. But so far it's been really fun. They've had some good activities. I love with the Good and the Beautiful science units where I'm like, what would you do for an activity for this? Or this could seem a little bit boring, but they always find ways, like great ways to incorporate different activities or fun things for the kids to think about or to try out, or, you know, like stand up and do this, and it kind of like experiment with feeling what it's like to be a certain animal or whatever, you know, like they just come up with certain things that make it a lot more fun. And so I really appreciate that. Like when last week we talked about milk, mammals, you know, are named after mammary glands because they feed their babies milk. And so we did an experiment with milk and with the fat in milk, and how if you put soap on a Q-tip and put food coloring in the milk, the food coloring kind of sits in one spot, and especially in heavy cream it does because the fat content's so high, but then the dish soap spreads it and kind of breaks it up. So there's like that little bit of a science experiment in there too, which was a lot of fun. So far I've really been liking mammals. I wasn't sure if it was just gonna be like, here's this animal and here's this animal. And something else that's cool, oh, their book's right here, is their workbooks. It has stickers at the front, and then there's a map, I think it's towards the back, of the whole world. So like this. And I can show you next time because it'll be all done. But every lesson so far, at the end, it has us at least do one animal and put it where it goes on the world map. And so that's been a different activity. We haven't had one of those types of activities before on their science unit. So that's been something that's been a little bit different and fun for my kids. So all in all, science is going great. I always love doing science because I just know we're gonna love it. Okay, the next thing I wanted to mention quickly was just about history. And so we did Mount Everest this last quarter. For most of the quarter, we were talking about Mount Everest. We were reading books. A lot of these go into the history of Mount Everest, thus the reason we're using them for history, and talking about those that first try to climb, or just all the rules, the regulations, all the things that were happening at the beginning, the discovery of Mount Everest, all the things. So that was really cool to read through. So I really like these books. They go in and explain a lot, like where is Mount Everest? They have them for so many things. And then climbing Mount Everest, I think, did we read this one? I'm trying to even remember now if we did. I think so. And so it talks about how heroes reach the Earth's highest peak. And so that one was really fun. I also like the I Survived books. Those ones are more historical fiction. Obviously they're creating a story and then weaving in some of the details, whereas these books have a little bit more factual, at least this one does, type stuff. And then for that also we had gotten this game because Jessica from the Waldock Way creates mini units, which is where I've gotten all the book ideas for like Mount Everest, and now we're doing the San Francisco earthquake, but she also will list YouTube channels or games and things in the units. And so she had put this game, so this is called Dicey Peaks, and it's a fun hiking Everest and kind of just understanding a little bit more about what it entails to hike up the tallest mountain in the world. And then also, these aren't about Mount Everest, but she had suggested these as well as a game. It looks like Mount Everest, right? It's called Mount Cleverest. And so it's just a fun trivia game. So you go through it, it's true and false. It's very fast, but if you want just something fun, even as like a homeschool starter or something to keep your kids busy for a second while you need to go do something, I feel like this is good. It's a really quick setup. It only takes a few minutes to play. And I feel like a lot of kids can do it. They just have to be able to read a little bit and know what true and false means. And they also have this one, I'll mention it here instead of with geography. So I saw that they had this one as well. And so we have started playing this one more when we do some geography games on Thursdays. And that's been fun to get in a little bit more geography trivia. Again, it's quick. And just, it's fairly easy. You know, some of the things obviously you don't know and you get the answers wrong, but they're very simple facts. So I so far have really liked those. And then, like I said, we are now doing the San Francisco earthquake. And I have a few books for this one. I might even have an I Survived one. Sorry, again, my voice, it's so bad. And then we have a game also. So next quarter, I can show all those things because we just have been, I think it's been a week about since we started this book. And so we're just going through this one a little bit. And since I have been sick and not have as much of a voice, we have not been reading as much as we normally do. And so anyway, we're working on this one for history. And then I guess I'll mention the other read aloud since it kind of fits in to where we are, but we're doing refugee right now. And we are almost halfway through. Again, some of these things are hard with chemistry also. Our days were just longer. And so I didn't get as much time to read this book. So far we are enjoying it. It is following 3 different storylines in 3 different time periods in 3 different places, which can get a little bit confusing. And then also, like, my kids might not hear about the next person's story for a little bit because it does equally rotate through them. Some books don't do that. You know, once you're introduced to all the characters, they'll kind of just bounce between them. This one always is going in the same order, at least so far. And so it might be like a week before they hear the next person's story again, just because of the amount that we're able to read each day. But it's been good so far. I have a few other books by him. This is the first one we've read, so I'm interested to see what the other ones are like. But we're still working through this one and learning about some different types of refugees throughout different periods of history, which I think is very cool. And let's see, what do we want to talk about next? I'm gonna get a drink of water and think about it, and I'll come right back. Okay, something I did want to mention was geography. I didn't take the book out, but it's the Knotgrass Our 50 States or something. And we've been doing it for almost 2 years. We're almost done. And part of me really is just like, just get done with it. Because I don't know, certain curriculums are just hard for me, and it just has been a long time. Geography, I think, is fun to study, but it's funner to study maybe in like snippets or something. I'm not really sure. When it just is a whole bunch of dates and things, that just becomes really hard. And I do like the layout, and they pick interesting facts about each state to talk about. And they'll usually have an activity for one of those. Like, they put the states together in groupings. And so they'll have an activity that goes along with one of those states in the group. And so I think that's fun. The workbooks are really nice. We've just kind of given up, I feel like, on all of it. I think it's just been too long, right? We've been doing this curriculum for too long, and we're all just a little bit sick of it. I think that's part of it. Another part of it is it's not a bad curriculum, but it's not my favorite either. So it's just kind of in that middle ground where I'm like, okay, we'll do it, but it's not great. And so I think it's just been really long, but I feel like the workbook is really good. I really do like it. It has a lot of coloring parts they can do. It has parts where the kids can go through and mark different things on the map. And I feel like it is one of the better workbooks I have seen for some of these types of curriculums. But it's just, I think we're all just a little bit over it at this point. And so today I went over 2 states instead of just 1, because we're just trying to get through the last like 7 states as fast as possible, which sounds horrible, but that's just kind of where we're at right now at this point. So I'm not sure what we're gonna do next, or if we'll do a geography unit this next year. I haven't figured that one out yet. But like I said, this is also just a fun addition to it. This isn't just US like geography, but it is fun to be able to add in just a little bit of games here and there, or on Thursdays, like I said, when we do games, that one's an easy, fun one to pull out as well. But geography, we're hanging in there. We're about done with it, and we're all gonna be rejoicing, I think. Well, me most of all. I think I'm just over using this curriculum. I need something different. I need to change it up. With science, we change the units basically every 4-ish weeks, depending how long they are. And like, that's a good speed for me. 4 to 6 weeks and then change. And it's like, we're still doing science, but it's a whole different subject, topic, which I really like. And so I feel like if I had something with geography where we were doing that a little bit more, but it's so hard too, because there's so many states or so many countries. And so it's like, do we just take a year and only study like 10 or something, and that's it? And then we move on and do something different the next year, and then come back and study 10 more. I don't know. Let me know what you guys like to do, because it's more daunting. I feel like there's just so much to study that sometimes it's like, what do we study? What do we leave out? So that's kind of where we are with geography at this point. The last things I wanted to mention that we did a little different this quarter, I have mentioned these in a favorites video, I think, recently, but we've been doing what we want to pray for each week. And so I have like little sticky notes that stick on the back of this door. And so my kids will write something. Obviously they can pray for more things than that thing in that week, but it's just something to help us stay a little bit more focused. And it's even helping me. I don't always remember or pay attention to it, but just something to like refocus me at the beginning of the week, I feel like is very helpful, and be like, oh yeah, what do I want to focus on this week? Or where is my heart at this week? And also just helping my kids learn those types of habits. And then something else we've been doing that I could also use your help on. I'm just asking for your help. I just need your help. I'm sure other people do too. Is we've been doing kindness activities on Thursday. Sometimes my kids are mean to each other, a lot of the time. I don't know if your kids are all just rainbows and sunshine all the time, but mine can be very mean to each other. And so I was like, okay, we're gonna start doing a kindness activity. So sometimes that's just saying a nice thing about the person next to you, and we'll go in a circle, and it's really quick. So we've also done ones where they've put their name at the top of the paper, and we pass it around, and each of us writes a nice thing about them. My daughter's birthday was on the day we did the kindness activity, so I had cut out hearts, and we each wrote on a heart something we liked about her. It had snowed one day, and so I had my kids go out and shovel the neighbor's snow, which they did not appreciate. Well, one of them really did not, but the rest of them were okay about it. And so I was like, sometimes being kind is doing things we don't always like to do, but it's also important to do it. And so if you have other suggestions for just like simple, like it's only supposed to be like a 5-minute thing of ways to help our kids to be more kind and just activities to focus their words towards more positive things instead of so many negative things, I'm just looking for little activities, because sometimes I run out of ideas, you know, or we cycle back through the same ideas over and over again. So if you have other suggestions, we did write letters to each other one time, like they drew their names out and then wrote a letter like on a nice card to the person's name they had drawn out. So we've done that. So just some different things like that. I would appreciate it if you have any other thoughts about that. All right, so that was our Q3 review. I always come into this video like it's gonna be so short, I have nothing to say, and then here we are 30 minutes later and I'm like, oh my gosh, I talked a long time. The video might not actually be that long once I cut it and edit it and everything, but I'm grateful that you stuck around this whole time if you are still here. But remember to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy seeing these Q3 videos, and I hope that your homeschool year is going well, and I will see you next time.